All right. Hello, everyone. Oh, we have some more people trickling in here. Let me get them admitted. All right, while they get settled, hello, everyone, and welcome to VTApplies Presents Supporting My College-Bound Student. Today, we'll be talking about what parents and guardians can do to support their children during an overwhelming time with many moving parts. And also, we'll hear from some current college students about their experiences transitioning to life at college. This presentation is being offered as part of VSAC's VTApplies initiative. And before we get started, I just want to review a couple general pieces of housekeeping. All participants are muted, but we do encourage you to submit any questions that you have through the chat. We will be monitoring those throughout the presentation. We may surface the questions throughout as we go, or we may hold some until the end. And if time permits, we may have an opportunity for open questions at the end. And just a reminder again that the presentation today is being recorded. It will be posted on our landing page, vsac.org/VTApplies if you have any questions, but we'll also email it to all of the registrants today. Now with us for today's presentation is Cathy Printon. She is VSAC's Gear Up School and Family Partnership Coordinator. Cathy has spent 30 years in higher education, from admissions to Dean of Students, both in Vermont and in Virginia. A graduate of Johnson State College and Virginia Tech, the bulk of her career has been spent working with students in transitioning from high school to college. And now with her own 2 children in college, she's getting to experience the other side of a major life event. Now I'll turn it over to Cathy to introduce our student panelists.
Great, thank you, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining us tonight. This is going to be my first presentation of this kind on Zoom, so I'm a little excited, and hopefully you'll have some good questions for us and get some good information from myself and the students that have joined us tonight. So thank you for spending a little bit of your home time with us. We certainly do appreciate it, and thank you, Chris, for kind of moderating and hosting us tonight. I'm going to let the students introduce themselves. We have Laura, MJ, and Kiki with us today. So I'll start with you, MJ, if you could introduce yourself, and if you could each just maybe say one word about how this launch in your first semester at college has been for you.
Hi, I'm MJ Barrett. This is my first semester at UVM off campus. I'd say one word to describe my experience this semester has been a little bit challenging, I'd say, but overall it was a good experience. I think so.
Great, thank you. Kiki, you're next.
Hi, I'm Kiki. This is my first semester at NVU Johnson off campus, and I'd say my college semester was great. It's been great.
Great, thanks. Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura. I just finished my first semester at UVM, and I would say my my one word would be exciting.
Awesome, thank you. And you'll notice that Laura and I have the same last name. Laura is my daughter, and we are sitting across the table from each other. So I'm going to go up and down with the volume so you don't hear any feedback and echoing on our end. But I want to thank the students for joining us tonight. I think they're going to have a lot to share with you. It's been quite a year. It's been an amazing year in many different ways. Some real good surprises about starting college, and some, a few challenges and some hurdles to get over. But this is an atypical year. It's not going to be like this every year. And we're going to talk about some general transitional experiences that students and parents go through. And we're looking at this from the parent perspective, and the students are going to share with us their experience for our own learning about what it is they're thinking, the experiences they have, and things that they didn't expect that's happened to them, and then things they did expect that either happened that exactly how they thought or didn't happen the way they thought. So we're going to move along and start with, first of all, Chris, do I move my slides? Do you move my slides?
I got you.
Okay, awesome. We're going to jump to the next slide. First of all, I think one of the most important things, there's so much going on just for students and parents during their last year of high school. This is an unprecedented year. Most of your students have spent the year either learning at home or in a hybrid model, or spending some days at school or a lot of time at school. So it's a challenging year in many ways. And even without those challenges, it's an amazing accomplishment to get you and your student to this point in their education. And kind of, you're right on the cusp of graduation, and a lot of things are happening for you right now. College application process, getting your FAFSA completed, doing all those checklists that you've been thinking about and anxious about and stressed about. So first of all, I think as parents, you need to take a moment with you and your student and celebrate where you are and all that you've done to get to this place. It is no easy task. It is not easy to get to the 12th grade with all the things that you have planned and all the things that you have left to do. So you have a couple more things left to do, but I think you take a deep breath because you're almost there. You've been preparing for this for a really long time. You know your child really well. And if I can give you one piece of advice to start where you're at now, is listen. Listen really well to what they want and where they're at and what they need help with. And decide what your expectations are of each other. There shouldn't be a lot of surprises. And I think it's really important for parents and students to think about, what do you want my help with? What do you want me to back off of? What do you have on your own? And we're going to talk about some of those things tonight. So again, give yourself a pat on the back, give your student a pat on the back. You are ready for what's coming. You've been preparing for quite some time. So the first thing that you've probably been experiencing with your student is this kind of growing independence. From the time they were probably 2, they wanted to do things on their own and they can do it by themselves. And now they really are launching at a time and a place where they really can do most of the things they need to do on their own and with the guidance that you've given them. So some of the things you want to think about in these past 5 or 6 months before heading off to college or staying at home and working is to continue that growing independence, to continue giving them the time and the space to make their own decisions. So some of the things that you want to really sit back and assess are how students at this point are making their own schedules. They kind of know how they work. They organize themselves, but what guidance can you give them? Where are the areas that they're still struggling a little bit, and where can you help them with planning ahead, making schedules? How do they think about work and life balance? And what are the good study habits that you want them to take with them? And what are some things that maybe this next semester coming up they can practice and work on a little bit? Food and nutrition is huge at this time with schedules. The students are working. Students are probably not in sports too much at this point, but typically they are. So how are students eating and balancing their nutrition? Maintaining a vehicle. If your student is staying home or if your student is bringing a car to campus, do they have basic car skills? Do they know where to go? And then one of the things that kind of came to me recently is a lot of students use Google Maps. So learning to kind of get yourself around with Google Maps is great. And if you've ever done that in Vermont, you may have ended up on a snowmobile trail. So Google Maps don't always get you to the place that you want to go. So reading a map, like what if you're in the Northeast Kingdom and you're in a spot where your phone isn't working and you want to go south to St. Johnsbury, or you want to go south to Wilder or White River Junction, making sure that map reading, I know it feels kind of random, but it seems a little important if your student is going away. And then as far as some skills that they have, can they make a simple meal? Are they doing their own laundry? I know this sounds like, well, of course they're doing those things, but for some families, they don't. So this is a good time to help them kind of figure out what are those independent living skills that will be helpful to them as they kind of move on their own. And I'm going to let the students chime in here if there's something I've missed, if there's an independent skill that you really found beneficial that you'd like to share. Now's a good time to share that. Does anybody?
Just to like add on to the work balance, I think that like time management is a really, really big deal when it comes to college. And everyone's different. So of course there are some students who are going to be like very responsible, very like on top of everything that they have to do. But for those students in particular, it's kind of like the habits that you probably should try to like help them with is like how to relax and like calm down, take a breath and all that stuff. And then there are other students, of course, that are going to need to be motivated a little bit more to be responsible, to manage their time well. So I think that's like a really important thing to address before that transition to college.
I agree with MJ, and I would add that one of the things that I found helpful, and he said, this definitely depends on the kid. So like ask your kid, do you need like a book planner? Do you want a wall calendar? Like, are you planning on organizing everything in your phone or something like that? Just making sure, or like helping them find out what system they need. And if they're like, Mom, Dad, like I got this, then just you got to believe them.
Awesome. Thank you. It is an interesting time and talking about, you know, when to let them take on their own responsibilities is something that you will negotiate and talk about at home. Knowing your family style and your child's style is always helpful. And that work-school balance, a lot of students ask us at VSAC, how many hours should I work during the week when I'm taking a full load of classes? And we typically recommend no more than a 10-hour work week. And for some students, that's not going to be enough. And for some, it might be too many. And we'll talk a little bit about how much time they're going to be spending in classes and studying. And then they're going to want some social time in there for just their own peace of mind. So work and school balance is really something to consider and talk about what the expectations are around that, and keeping in mind what the student has to earn if they're paying back any loans at that time. But 5 to 10 hours a week is pretty much a standard with work-study jobs. Okay, so here we get to the living on campus or living off campus option. And actually with the living off campus option, right now, a lot of students are opting to live at home. And that happens anyway, outside of the situation we're in now. We do have some students who opt to stay at home for financial reasons, for travel reasons, for family need reasons, all kinds of reasons why students stay at home. So MJ and Kiki stayed at home this semester, opted not to move on campus. And I'm going to have them talk to that experience. But one of the things I want to highlight is allowing them to create their own space within your home. It is tough for students to organize themselves and create the space at a kitchen table. I mean, we're at a kitchen table right now because we're doing a presentation, but we actually have separate workspaces that when school closed last semester and kids were home, we kind of had separate workspaces. But allowing them to define their workspace and organize themselves for their own style of learning and their own way of completing assignments. College is different than high school. And while we are hardwired as parents to check in and say, end of the semester's coming up. Do you have everything in that you need? Or I saw on the Facebook parent group that some deadlines are happening. And so we tend to get a little anxious and want to check in and move our kids forward. And I think Laura said, you know, if they've got the basics and they kind of have a system that they're using, allow them to use that system and modify it, and ask them when they need some help. It's good to check in, but checking in sometimes to a student feels like nagging. So we want to check in ways that are supportive and you know, maybe in our perspective a little naggy, but we don't want it to sound that way. We want to make sure that they're getting the support they need to complete their assignments. And this has been an extremely stressful time. So it's not just checking in about their homework, but checking in about how they're doing with the whole adjustment. That's kind of what this session is about, is how are students socially and emotionally feeling about the transition and about where they're at and about their adjustment to college. And again, we get back to that. What do they need from you? If you can establish that ahead of time, what do your students expect you to do with them and for them? And what do they want to do on their own? Sometimes it's good to jot those things down, have a conversation, stick it on the fridge, and kind of refer to that and change it as you need, as they're moving along, and talk about those things rather than make assumptions about those things. So I'm going to let MJ and Kiki talk about their particular adjustment to college while still living at home. So MJ, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. My experience was, I mean, this semester at like learning remotely was definitely rewarding, but it was very like time consuming. I spent a lot of time on work, and what I noticed was that, like, of course, college and high school are not the same thing. So I spent a lot more time outside of class doing work independently than I'd ever done before. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing, is like, for me, I was going to like my classes, but of course this semester we're starting like this remote learning aspect where everything is through Microsoft Teams. So a lot of the in-class portion of what we were doing was like discussion-based stuff to just kind of like clarify what we were learning, but most of the learning was happening like independently. So it did take a lot of my time, and I what I thought was like what I needed to do was, like, every day I needed to put something into my work. Like, I needed to commit time every day to at least like one assignment or two assignments, just like even on weekends. I was like, it's if I want to stay ahead of the ball, I should dedicate time to things and be proactive about them. So for me, my parents were really supportive about that. They know that I was really committed to my work and everything. So they didn't really like hover a lot, but they were always coming, like maybe like once a week. They just asked me like, so how are things going? Like, what can I do to help you? And that was really helpful for me, to have my parents kind of be there, but not really like get involved. So that's how it worked for me. It was really nice to have like that support, and to be at home to have that support. I didn't really have to travel this semester. My mom really helped me with like things in the house so that I could like dedicate time to my work, and I wasn't so she was making dinner for me, and I was like, thank you so much. That's so helpful. Like, those are the little things that helped me out.
Thank you. Kiki?
So I'm pretty quick to adapt to things. So because high school or like my last little bit of high school was online, I kind of already knew everything that was kind of happening. I kind of knew the drill about how to get all my work done and all that. So the whole start to online college was actually a lot better, because a lot of colleges do already allow online classes. And so having them there already. It made it a lot more organized. So for me, there wasn't much of a change, except it was more of a positive change because it was more organized. But my workspace, it's been pretty good. And my mom every week would ask me, like MJ, how are things going, all that stuff. So that was pretty helpful. But I forgot what I was going to say. How dandy.
Do you want me to, if you think of it, just kind of raise your hand, we'll jump back.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. One of the questions or topics is, how do your students connect with other students while they're living off campus? Were either one of you able to, through class, through Teams or through Zoom, make friends or have some social time with other students who are also online?
In a couple of my classes, we had like small groups for like discussion. So we kind of, we weren't like really great friends, but we kind of were able to socialize a bit, that aspect. But I think overall, I didn't really get that much of a social aspect to my semester, but I did meet people in my classes for sure.
My English class, every day, every class, we would be put into breakout rooms. And in those breakout rooms, a lot of people would be like kind of shy, others wouldn't. And so the people who weren't shy, at least, me and them, we got along really well. And so eventually we just ended up asking for each other's Snapchats. They're like, hey, you have Snapchat? And I'm like, yeah. So we added each other on Snapchat. And so I became friends with a couple of people through the breakout rooms and then asking for like social media and stuff. So that's how I connected with other people.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you. All right, we can jump to the next slide. The next slide is about living off campus, but living in an apartment. And that's probably not going to be very likely for first semester students, but it could be. There could be some places that people are going that there's not a residential requirement, or they're subletting or living with a friend. So a little bit different than living at home. Living in an apartment is going to add some budgeting to students' situations. Who's bringing what to the apartment? Is it a furnished apartment? What is the landlord? What does the lease look like? What are the policies on leasing and subletting in the municipality where that's happening? So you want to check on that. A lot of times, students don't want to stay in the summer, so they want to sublet, and you want to check out what that means for your student, if there's a fee or if that's not allowed. And then another, the same applies, is how are your students interacting with the campus as a whole? There's a different culture on campus. And so students can pick and choose those things that they want to participate in. A lot of campuses actually have a commuter student organization, so that students who are solely commuting can get together, but they're also welcome to join in any other club or activity that's happening on campus. Another thing to think about with that is in the budgeting piece, how are you going to support your student, and make sure you talk about that with your student, as far as what if they run out of money for utilities, or what if they've spent all their food money? I mean, how are you going to support them and let them know that ahead of time? And what ways are you willing to support, and how can you help them budget out for the semester and plan, or what are their plans to budget out for the semester? And again, there's offices on campus that support commuter students specifically. And they still have access to everything that students who live on campus have access to: tutoring and writing centers and activities and events, sports, and all of those things. So that's a little bit about living in an apartment off campus. And then we're going to move to living on campus. This is a bit of it's a different adjustment. It's a more traditional adjustment for students moving on campus. And It's probably one of the most anxiety ridden adjustments for students is, am I going to be accepted? Am I going to fit in? What's it going to be like there? Am I going to get along with my roommate? All of those things. So it's really helpful to identify who's there to support the students. There's the student life office and there's counseling offices. There's all kinds of wellness supports in there and activities for students to get involved right off the bat. It's helpful if you can to see the campus. If you've applied and you've accepted, if you can get to that campus, that would be really nice. Or if you can get there a little bit early, like if they give you an option at orientation to show up a little early, get there a little early, walk around maybe, understand what they have in terms of safety features and measures for schools. Some have call boxes, some have a safety line. So find out what the campus is like as far as campus safety and campus culture. One of the things, and Laura's gonna probably talk quite a bit about her adjustment to on campus, but one of the things as a parent is to really resist that urge to jump in and fix things. This is a really prepared for big transition for students. And it is, and they will, for the most part, they're going to figure out the things that they need to figure out. They're going to ask their friends, they're going to ask a faculty member, they're going to ask somebody that they know. And they have to start figuring out some of these things on their own. And I am definitely a parent who will jump in if I feel like my child is threatened or struggling in any way, and I have to resist that urge. I have to hear the call. I have a son who's a junior in college and my daughter's a freshman. And I have to get the call and listen to a struggle and hear what they're going to do or what their plan is for trying to fix that. So it's, my daughter, we live in Essex. My daughter goes to UVM. My son goes to Champlain. I could be there in a flash. I could be there in someone's office to bring down the heat, but I'm not going to do it. And I resist those urges, but I understand the desire. Transitions for students can sometimes take a week. They typically take 2 weeks to a month, but for some students it takes longer. So offering your support and encouragement during that is really helpful to them. There's ups and downs of that. And I'm going to let Laura talk about her transition and adjustment to living on campus. And then we'll come back to some other tips, but I'm going to hand it over to Laura's adjustment now. Thanks.
Thanks. So I think for me, the transition was pretty easy. I think one of the most beneficial things that I did was when I got on campus, if you have any in-person classes, it's really helpful to look at your schedule and then just go to wherever that class is. So you're not freaked out and stressed looking for it and you end up being late to class. So definitely making sure to go map out where your classes are, go visit them in person if you can. And like Cathy said, just look at the campus. Definitely walk around, get out, find as many things as you can. That's definitely helpful. And I think for discussing your work-life balance, like MJ kind of said a couple slides ago, mapping out your time, creating a time schedule, even if it's just study time, map out 3 hours for that a week at least. And for the transition, I think in terms of staying connected with your parents, one of the things that my mom did that was really helpful my first week was that before I left home, I had a wall calendar, and on it a week after I moved in or something, she had written on my wall calendar FaceTime mom. And I really love that because it was a good way to kind of be I'm here for you and I want to talk to you about it without being pestering or hovering too much. So I really like that. Just make sure be there for your kid. I mean, obviously I don't need to tell you guys that. But yeah, just be there for them and trust that they'll reach out if they need you, but also just make it known that you're there for them. I think like in terms of roommates, my roommate and I get along great. Like I love her so much. Um, and I think in terms of like rooming with someone you already know, like I went random, and we were really lucky because we got along really well. But I know people who went random and then didn't like their roommate. And from what I've heard, it's pretty easy to switch. Switch, especially because right now, I don't know if it'll be the same next fall, but right now there's a lot of like availability in dorms, so it was pretty easy for a lot of people to get switched if they wanted. And in terms of rooming with someone you already know, if you're just like best friends and you're like, yeah, like I've known this person since I was a kid, we get along really well, like during school, and we hang out after school. Maybe you've had a couple sleepovers. Um, that's not necessarily like proof that you'll be good at living together. Some of the most like important things to go over, like if you're thinking about rooming with someone you know, is like, what is your sleep schedule like? Are you like super clean or super messy? Like be truthful about that because it matters. Um, and talk about like, spending time in your room together, because especially during COVID, like you're kind of with that person 24/7. Um, and so I just think, talking about some of the more like logistical parts of living together is really important.
Do you want to talk about how you adjust like when you first met?
Yeah. So Shannon and I, when we first met, we did a bunch of like orientation type things together. Um, we went to the dining hall together. A lot of the things like your roommate is probably the first person you'll make like a deep connection with, or at least, more than small talk. Um, and so some of the things that we did was like we would go like get food together at the dining hall. We would walk around to like our classes together when we were mapping them out. Um, since we're in the same college, we had a couple classes that were together, which was fun. And then one of the things that we kind of struggled with was like sometimes we would have different classes at the same time and we would both be in our room. So I would definitely suggest, checking out the common rooms on your floor, or like the library is always a great place to go if it's just a lecture and you won't need to talk or be put in like a discussion room. But common rooms are great for that. And just like work out your schedule with your roommate. After like about like 2 or 3 weeks, you'll kind of get used to their schedule and like how it coordinates with yours. Um, but yeah, it's really helpful to kind of like set boundaries in like a friendly way. Like this is my time, like this is my space, and like this is yours.
Awesome, thank you. Some of the, having worked in residence life and student life for a really long time, there's typically a window of adjustment. So if students come on campus and they want to change rooms, like it's just not going to work with the person that they're rooming with. Oftentimes the residence life office will ask for like a 2-week just settling in period, because some students will decide that they're not at the right college. It's very few, but there are some, and they will leave. And then that gives the residence life office some time for shifting people around, and it loosens up the housing a little bit so that they can make some changes. And oftentimes, living with someone in small quarters is awkward. And especially a lot of our students come from sharing with a sibling who they've known forever, or having their own rooms. And so sharing a small space with a stranger is, it's a little challenging. So it takes time. And this is one of those things that could take some time. And I've known, again, over my years in residence life, roommates that came day 2 and were like, I can't live with this person, I need to change. And then lived together the whole 4 years and graduated, best buddies, and moved to California together. I mean, there's stories like that as well. So a lot of it is is being honest. When students fill out the housing forms, make sure they are honest and make sure they complete the form. And this is another one of those resist the urge things to complete all their paperwork. This is the first time that they're going to really have to complete their own paperwork and answer things honestly. If you stay up late and play games or listen to music or chat, with your friends on Snapchat or something, be honest about that. Don't say, I go to bed at 10 o'clock every night and then stay up till 2. So make sure your student is honest about those kinds of things. Completing all that paperwork and trying to get everything in on time helps the residence life office to plan for where they're going to put people. And I know at some schools, they don't have specialized housing. So they put you in any one of the residence halls that seems to fit with the right person. And honestly, schools do look at the profiles that they're getting and they do try to match you up. There's a staff that tries to make sure that your personalities and your interests are well matched, and they do the best they can with that. It is a personal thing. And that can make or break, a first semester. So they try really hard to do that. There are other campuses that have specialized housing. They might have athletic residence halls. They might have all female or all male. They may have health or wellness. They may have engineering or honors college. So look at what those options are and have your student pick the place that feels the best for them. If they're a smoker and they want to go to wellness, that's probably not a good match because they're not going to be able to smoke in that campus life experience. They can't smoke in their dorms anyway. And at some places you can't smoke on campus, but that's just an example. And then, yep, go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to say, like, while we're talking about all this room stuff and like answer questions honestly, I just wanted to quickly add, like, no one's gonna judge you if like you're the kind of person that says, yeah, like I stay up till 2 a.m. Like sometimes I smoke. Like no one's out here gonna like be mad at you for that, or like you're not gonna get in trouble for that. It's just gonna help you find like the best match and best living situation for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so honesty. Honesty is helpful. There was another thought I had, and I may come back to it. Kiki, do you remember the thought you had about remote learning? Did that ever come back to you? No, maybe?
Kind of, sort of. Basically how like I didn't have like a lot of work like MJ did. A lot of my teachers were pretty lenient about like extensions and stuff, and it was pretty easy for me to like communicate, but that's like very basic.
Awesome. So good communication. Does anybody have any living on or off campus questions at this point?
Nothing's coming through the chat so far.
Okay, cool. We shall move on. So here we go with the what to bring to campus if you're living on campus. I'm going to let Laura take this list and take this whole thing away. The only suggestion I'm going to say is roommates work together to kind of plan what they're going to bring. And I'm going to let Laura take this one.
Thanks. So one of the things that my roommate and I did before we moved on campus was we made a Google spreadsheet, and then we made a list of everything that we were going to bring. And it was like a column for me, a column for Shannon, and then a column for both of us. And we just put an X where each of us was gonna bring certain items. Obviously, like personal hygiene items, like bring your own. Please don't forget deodorant. I mean, if you do, there's probably like a convenience store that you can get it at that's close to campus or even on campus. But yeah, just make sure, like, I looked up a lot of lists online and then like combine them all to really like get everything that I needed. Laundry detergent and laundry bag, like definitely don't forget your laundry detergent. Also don't leave it in the laundry room because my detergent got stolen like my first week. And I thought it was really helpful to have a laundry bag. I think sometimes like laundry bins can be kind of clunky. Like I had a cloth one that folded, and I thought that was really helpful just because you're lugging stuff across like your floor, maybe multiple floors or staircases or something. So definitely have a laundry bag. Seasonal clothing, I did not bring as many jackets as I should have, and I should have known because it's Vermont, right next to the waterfront. Um, so definitely like be aware of like whatever season like you're preparing for, not whatever season you're in. School supplies, honestly, I think like especially with online classes, the most I needed, like I had 3 big notebooks and like a lot of pens, and that was like all I needed for the whole semester. I think I even still have like 1 notebook um that hasn't been like filled yet. So definitely have like paper and pens to take notes and stuff, but I think most things are done like on laptops and computers now. Mini fridge and microwave. So I we had a microwave in our room. Shannon and I, or not a microwave, sorry, a mini fridge. We had a mini fridge in our room, and that was so convenient. It was really, really helpful. Um, like if you have like snacks in there or like want to keep your water cold, stuff like that is nice. But like it's not a must, like, it was just a convenience item, honestly, and, I think a microwave could be helpful too, but we had one in our common room, that anyone could use, so, we didn't get our own, and, like, anytime we wanted, like, popcorn or something, we would just go to the common room. Um, and then proper technology, definitely look up what, computer is needed for your program. Um, I know like for my major, like they required a MacBook instead of just like a Chromebook. So definitely make sure that you have like the right computer. Don't bring your entire wardrobe, but if you do like to bring lots of clothes and you're the kind of person who brings like 3 suitcases on like a 2-day vacation, I totally relate to that, and it will be okay, and you probably won't wear all of it, but it'll still be fun anyway. It'll still be worth it, to bring a lot of stuff. Um, don't buy textbooks ahead of time. That's a really, really good one. A lot of my professors either said, "Oh, you won't need it," or "I'll provide, like, the 3 pages that I photocopied." Um, so don't buy our textbooks until like maybe like the first week of classes. Definitely like go to your class, or if you're kind of stressed about it, you're like maybe like the textbook is in high demand, email your professor ahead of time and ask if it's provided or if like the content is provided um, in like class through whatever like we use Blackboard, whatever website or program you use to keep track of homework and assignments. Um, don't bring hot plates or certain lighting fixtures. Yeah, I brought a lamp to campus and it had like it was one of those like 5 bulb things that like stems, and they said I couldn't have it because there's too many bulbs in a room. So yeah, look at like what isn't allowed, because you're also not allowed to bring like hot plates and like certain like the hot water things unless it's like an automatic turn off sometimes. So look out at what your college allows for sure.
Those, you will get a packing list, and you can kind of make sense of that with your student. And MJ or Kiki, did you have technology requirements that you had to get? I know we talked the other day about software that you needed to purchase for certain things. So do you two have anything to add about those purchases,
Um,
requirements?
yeah, so like after my senior year ended, we were so used to using Chromebooks that I like wasn't prepared to go without living with my Chromebook because I had it for 4 years. So I bought a Chromebook at the end of senior year. And then when I was going through like the list of like the to-do list before the start of my first semester in college, it said that there was like specific specs that they wanted for your computer, like at UVM, and they said Chromebooks won't cut it. So I had to buy another computer, and what I literally did was I just wrote down on a piece of paper like the specs. I didn't know what they meant because it's kind of like computer techie, whatever, but I wrote down the list of the specs that they wanted, walked into Best Buy, showed it to a guy and was like, "Can you get me a computer that has these?" And he was like, "Yeah, what kind of like computer are you looking for? Like what kind of brand?" And I said I wanted Apple. So I got a MacBook. Like I literally walked in and out like in 5 minutes and got a MacBook that had those specs.
Awesome. Did they, and these are things that, as you know, parents can ask their students to ask for. Like sometimes the list, and this year, again, this was a strange year. So I think things were coming late from the college. They weren't sure if they were going to have people on campus. And so they were kind of working quickly. But I think there's time to get those lists and to be able to kind of tick some of those things off of the list over the summer. I think some things came late to people. So there was a little bit of scrambling this year. And I don't think that's typical at all. And there were some software issues. I know that for some students, there were a couple different platforms that faculty members were using, and they were using multiple platforms. And so you'll want to know if you have to have the software for those things. I think they've figured that issue out, but some faculty still may use some multiple things. Sometimes there's a few, I don't want to call them hidden costs, but they're unexpected costs. So if you're in a certain program, you might need, so if you're an outdoor education program, you might need steel-toed boots. Or if you're in an engineering program, you may need the certain types of materials. So the list will be or should be program specific, and you can always ask faculty what you need to get before you go. And again, the buying textbooks, I know people tend to think that the bookstore is going to run out if I don't get it and my student's not going to have it. But that's rarely the case for your first semester. And then then kids get savvy to what professors want you to have, what books, and who's going to use the book in completion. So those are always good things to kind of, like Laura said, get into your class, see what they actually want you to use, and see how the class runs. The other thing is sometimes students drop a class and make a change, and then they've got this book that they've purchased that they're not going to use. So make sure that your student is going to be in that, kind of that schedule that they've determined for themselves before they purchase those books.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
What you said about the textbooks, what I did this semester was, I'm pretty sure the website is called slugbooks.com. And I went to slugbooks.com, and from the UVM page where you like type in all the classes that you're going to be taking that semester, and they like pull up all the books and whatever the materials you're going to need for that class. They have like a CN number or some like code number, and I copied that number, put it into Slugbooks, and it shows you like so many different like other outlets you could get those books at, and it will show you the price for each one. So it will specifically show you if you can buy or rent like specific books or materials at other websites, and the cheapest way to do that.
That's great. There are, thank you for reminding me of that. There are, students will know, once they get there, where to get the best deals for books. But also, if you are a parent and the school invites you to, the parents of the class of 2025 Facebook page, jump in there, because oftentimes parents will share some of these tips that they have that they've learned from their students or that they've heard from other parents. There's a lot of information around so-and-so, my daughter is going to leave her apartment. So there's a space for an apartment at this place. Roommates are great. So there's all those kinds of connections that you're not going to get if you're not communicating or in the right places to get those pieces of information. So books, where to get books, apartments, rooms, knowing that the food line is too long. You get all kinds of things. Most of it's pretty useful, and some of it is knowing that the food line's too long and your student's standing outside, and there's not a lot you can do about that one. Okay, so what's next?
All right, we also have about 9 minutes left. Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Thank you. We are, we're going to move through this. So again, this is about your students' transition, but it's also a transition for you. We talk a lot about our students leaving and helping them gain that independence and helping them adjust. And we want a strong and successful launch. We want them to be able to kind of take this step and do these things and succeed at them. And there will be bumps in the road. There will be things that we didn't expect. There will be times when they call you and just need you to listen. And there will be times that they don't. And you can call them, but know that they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and they're fine. And that we're not used to not having them around every day. So to go 3 days and not talk to or see your child is a little unsettling, but this is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So if you can encourage, another way to eliminate or help with some of that anxiety and stress is if you can go to a summer orientation and sign up for classes at that summer orientation, get to know the campus a little bit, meet a handful, kind of a small group of students who are all there at the same time. You might meet your roommate who's been selected for you. They might not be selected at that time, actually. So you may not meet your roommate in early summer orientations, but you might in a later orientation. You could even plan to go together if your roommate's been assigned. But spend a little time getting to know at least a pocket of people. Attend as many welcome events when your student gets to campus. There's all kinds of welcome activities and orientation activities. It's tough for introverted students, and it's really tough for students. This is a new environment. They don't really know anybody. So it's tough, but encourage them to be brave. Faculty love to see their students. So going to class is really important, or having your camera on while you're on a remote class. I know it's not popular, but the faculty do like seeing students. Don't be afraid to either get your work done early. Like one of the things that Laura was sharing with me the other night was setting an earlier deadline for herself. Like if it's due on the 21st, she might have it ready by the 15th. And then do some fine tuning later on. But you might be able to hand that assignment in early and just get it off of your, not yours, but your students' list of things to do. In that same vein, the student can also ask for an extension if they're struggling. Ask for a little bit more time with something. Some faculty will give it, some faculty will not. But it never hurts to ask. Most of the time, they really want to work with students to make sure the students are learning the content and understanding the concepts that they want. Most of the time, there are tutoring services and writing support on campus, and they are free to students through student support offices. Sometimes there's a fee, but it's typically the Honors College or like in high school, the Honor Society students who do this work for work study jobs, and they're available to help students. And again, making sure your student knows where supports are, who's around, who can I call, if it's a sibling, if it's an aunt or uncle, if it's a grandparent, if it's a cousin, a friend, talk to them about who their list is and who they might call before they start taking classes and find out where they can get help. Anything to add, students?
Yeah, just one quick thing about the camera thing. if you're worried about like how you look, don't worry about that, because a lot of people are too busy looking at themselves or looking at what's going on in class. So really only your professor would look at you every now and then. Like every time I have my camera on, I'm too busy looking at myself, you know, like checking me out or like just like seeing if I look good or not. But like people aren't gonna care what you look like, and they're not really looking either.
And like to
And
add on
to
to
add
that,
on to that,
even if you
even
are like, if you are really afraid of what you look like in class, and you still want to make that connection with your professors or your teachers, your TAs, turn your camera on like before class, join a couple minutes early if the Zoom session is open. Mom, can you turn your video down? Sorry, I can hear myself.
Oh, I did.
Thank
It's
you.
muted.
yeah, so just turn you can like turn your camera on a couple minutes earlier than class, and that's a great way. Like some professors will be hanging out in the room a couple minutes earlier, and that's a great way to go like make small talk with people and then like turn it off for class if you want. But like Kiki said, no one cares what you look like. Someone might even think you're cute, so you know, give it a shot. Turn your camera on.
It's nice to know that students might think the parents are cute. I don't know. I like that idea. Okay, let's move on. And then again, this is not something, this is a transition, and it's one of life's big ones. So it's not going to happen fast. It's going to take some time, and it takes some resilience and ups and downs. It's kind of it's an ebb and flow of feelings and emotions. So sometimes you'll call, or your student will call you and they'll be all excited to tell you what happened. And then the next time there's a frustration or there's a disappointment. One of the things that I feel is on the shoulder of parents is to really help them stay long enough to get bonded and engaged at the college. It does take some time, and just, you know, keep reminding them, this is what we've prepared for. This is what you've looked forward to. Ask them about things that they're doing on campus. And on the other side of that, you know your child. If they're really struggling and if this is really not a good fit for them, bring them home. If it's just not the right place and they're really struggling, you'll know when it's time or if it's time. But most of the time it's a long adjustment, 2 weeks to 2 months. Most students get there. I did this for a long time. I saw a lot of struggles, and most students will find their group. They'll find the place where they fit, and they'll find their people. So the last words I have for you before we maybe have some time for questions, listen, really spend some time listening to what they're asking for, what they want, what they need from you. And you can let them know what you need from them too. It's a two-way street. So you probably have some expectations for them as well. Any last thoughts, students, before we go to questions? All right, Chris, do we have any questions?
Nothing has come on through the chat, but for all of the participants watching right now, we invite you to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask any questions, or of course you can still submit them through the chat, and I'm happy to read them off.
Great. Is there anything that students you would have done differently?
Yeah, I can start with that. One of the things that I would
have done differently was have like a plan for managing my time, because I came in with like a schedule and like a calendar and kind of a planner. But I would say like as soon as possible, kind of like create a schedule for yourself with like when your classes are, and especially it's so important to block out like study time and like time for homework, because I think most students just think like, oh yeah, it's homework, like I'll do it like I'll do it when I have time or I'll do it when I'm just sitting in my room. But I think it's really, really helpful to just block out that time, like put it in your schedule, and also blocking out like time to eat also, so you're not like just straight through working and then don't have dinner till like 9 or 10. Like make time like to take care of yourself but also to get your work done.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I would have changed how I blocked out my time, because I think I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to my work. So it's like I literally, like, not sometimes, more than sometimes, I'd spend the entire day doing work. And it would be like consistently, like I felt like I was always stressing myself out to do something. And I feel like I could have improved that if I kind of like limited myself to a certain like time frame, like, okay, get this done now. But I think I'll be better for that next semester for sure.
I personally, I didn't know classes even started until 2 days after they actually started. So I wish I was a little more on top of things to start off with if I was gonna change anything, because I didn't know things. I didn't even go to my first class until like 5 days after they started, because I had to set up a meeting and then. But yeah, that's one thing I would have changed.
There you go. Maybe making sure, email and messages come a lot of different forms. So sometimes things get missed. So always good to check that email in all of its forms and make sure you're ready for things. Yes.
Go ahead, Trisha.
Yeah. So did any of you either when you were deciding and applying to your schools or shortly after you got in, maybe start with before you applied, did any of you get in touch with departments that you were interested in and start building relationships with any of the faculty or asking questions, and if so, did you find that helpful or?
Yeah, I can start out by answering with my experience. For me, I met, I think the guy who, I don't know his official title, the man who looks at applications for Vermont, for UVM. So I met with him in person and kind of talked about like what it would look like to be at UVM my first semester, and I think that was before I got accepted. And it definitely, I think it helped. Like it made me feel a little bit closer to like the UVM community, and like, I knew a person on staff there, which I think was really helpful. One of the things that I had thought about doing but didn't do was like shadowing a current student for a class at UVM, and I think like I didn't get to do that, but I think it could have been like really helpful if I had like shadowed a student in like a class I was looking at. Especially I think that's helpful for students who are not sure what major they want to go into or what they want to study. And that was definitely something that he also thought was possible, that we were gonna do, but ended up not being able to happen. But I think it would be helpful.
Thanks.
Great. That's a good question. I mean, it was easy for us to bring our students to the campuses because they both are close. So one of the things that Laura did with the admissions office was talk in her, say, is there anything like, here's my transcript. Is there anything that looks like is missing from my transcript for my application? Because it was well in advance of application. So that was helpful. And my son did that at Champlain too. So maybe they can get a summer experience in or something before that helps.
Oh, before the application actually goes in.
On this last slide also is an article, if anybody's interested, about coming back into education once we've moved beyond the pandemic and things start to open up a little bit, because it won't be back to normal. It'll be a different kind of normal and another kind of readjustment. So it's a very quick article. You can choose to read it if you're interested. but we thought we'd pop it in there. And I'm always available by email at VSAC if you have any questions about transition and the adjustment. It's Printon, I think it was on the first slide, it's printon@vsac.org. Feel free to ask me any questions at any time.
And I think with that, we'll go ahead and conclude. Thank you everybody for joining us. Cathy, MJ, Kiki, Laura for putting on this wonderful presentation. I did just send the link that Cathy was talking about through the chat. So if you're still on here and you wanted to take a peek at that, feel free to. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and send out an email with the copy of the presentation so you'll have that. And if you're watching the recorded copy of this, just reach out to us via email and we can forward that along. Thank you all so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening and stay warm.